welcome to the Everything Self-Love and Recovery podcast, where we discuss everything self-love. And today, I have a friend that I've met along my journey, Carmello R from Ohio, with a substantial amount of years of sobriety. Carmello, introduce yourself to the audience and come in and tell us a little bit about yourself.
All right. Well, thanks for having me first and foremost. Hello, everyone. My name is Carmello R. I got, I have 20 years of sobriety. I'm one of six children, four boys and two girls. Um, I grew up in Chicago, and I was raised in Cincinnati, in Ohio, and family's Puerto Rican and Greek. I have five wonderful children. I have three grandchildren. Um, Been in the same job for the past 17 years now. Um, yeah, that's that. My sobriety is
Wow,
March 22nd, 2005.
that is awesome. So, as we had talked about and get to know each other, thank you so much, man, for joining us on the podcast. And um, the length of sobriety that you have is substantial, and I just want to thank you. If you could just share what has been the most important aspect of your self love journey while maintaining sobriety.
My main asset, I would probably say, is just me believing in my higher power. Um, I didn't have, I didn't believe in a higher power before I came in these rooms of AA. I just didn't believe in God, period. I grew up with uh, a good childhood, but just a lot of bullying because I'm the youngest, so
Okay.
I got bullied a lot, and I wasn't really looking at myself in the mirror like I have value. I was looking at myself in the mirror like I'm a failure, and so I just turned to alcohol to ease my pain.
Absolutely. I understand that, man. I have two older brothers. When you said bullying, I wasn't sure if you were doing the bullying or if you were being bullied. So, but definitely understand having older
Yeah,
siblings.
it was rough, especially when there's with parents fighting all the time. Um, my sisters being, you know, what's that word? Promiscuous. Uh, my brothers chasing girls and no one hardly home. I was like the only one home by myself a lot. So I turned to sneaking in my dad's, liquor cabinet, playing video games, uh, started stealing a lot, would just order pizza, and I would be that guy that ordered a pizza, but I didn't have to pay it, but I got it anyway. Um, Making those 900 number phone calls real late at night, being 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 young and dumb.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think what got me to the point where I needed self love, or like I said, or self care, was for that liquor. That was really like, it didn't argue back.
Hmm.
It didn't it didn't disrespect me. It never argued. It never talked back. It just took a sip and everything went away. That
Wow.
was my go to. I just I I drank so much of when I was young. I think like my first stand for first taste of alcohol was like when I was 8 or 9 years old.
Hmm.
And my dad just had a cabinet, but it was never locked up, but it was high enough where I couldn't reach it. Well, I used to tell my brother all the time. I was telling him that, hey, you know what? Can you grab something down for me from the cabinet? And being he was always in a rush going on a date, he never really thought about closing that cabinet.
Hmm.
And so I found a way where I could, get it. And sometimes he had beer in the fridge, and sometimes he had the alcohol that was out in the cabinet, but there was more of a what's that, like easy access for me as far as the refrigerator, because it was there.
Right.
It's
Right.
a lot easier in the refrigerator than to reach up for the cabinet. But my dad would come home, wasted so many times. He would pull it back from his cabinet and he would pull it down to a level where I could reach it. And I guess
Hmm.
he was so drunk he forgot he didn't put it up. So I was like, okay, well, he went to bed, he passed out. Okay, cool. Now it's my turn. Oh,
I remember some of them younger days. I too started around 8 or 9 years old. And from seeing my siblings, sneak, the old man would come in and crash by the sofa with the bottle next to the sofa, and we would crawl over to the sofa one at a time, get a mouthful, and I would see him crawl back and go upstairs and chase it with water and things of that nature. So, yeah, that was my early time of being introduced to alcohol.
it was really difficult because, like I had mentioned before, my family's Puerto Rican and Greek, so that's what we do.
Yeah, no doubt.
Funeral, wedding, um, my sister's turning 16, coming of age parties, homecoming, proms, dances throughout the year, just New Year's Eve, and just like, oh my goodness, it's a real miracle that I'm here. It's a miracle you're here. But
Absolutely.
it's just like I just I still can't believe how my higher power has transformed me from where I once was at to where I'm at now. And my mom always told me when I was little, um, you know what, you're a blessed mess. And I'm like, I never really thought about it. And as time went on, my sobriety got longer and longer. I still call myself a blessed mess today because there are times I look at myself in the mirror and like, man, you believe you did this? You believe you didn't get caught for this? You believe you did get caught for this, but you shouldn't have got caught for this? Um, I'm just so thankful that I have people like you that are in my corner that are there for that next fellow because
Absolutely.
you know back then there wasn't no person I could turn to. There wasn't no person I could talk to about my problems. Now I have kids, grandkids, wife, therapist, psychiatrist, sponsor. I have all these people now that can actually listen to me now.
Right.
But back then it was just like I was just all about me, me, me. And now
Absolutely.
it's all about them.
So do me a favor, take me back to about 20 years ago. What was it like then?
For me, it was my rock bottom point was before I went into rehab. I was able to get one phone call, and the one phone call I had, I'm trying to get teary eyed when I say this. I haven't done this in a while, but my last phone call I had was with my oldest daughter.
mm,
I had a FaceTime phone call with her, and I said, "Hey, how you doing?" And she was like, um, "This was after I did a detox like of a week by myself. I don't recommend it, but I
no.
did that by myself. But after I got did that, and my friend had recommended a program, I went to the program. But before that, I got on FaceTime phone call with my daughter. She's been, I had everything I owned as far as my clothes. I had everything I had. And my daughter said, "Dad, this is your life, not mine."
Wow.
And once she said that, I'm like, I started to talk, and she hung up. And I tried
Mm,
calling her back. I tried calling her back, and she was like, "What? Don't call me. Don't text me. Don't write me. None of that until you get ready to graduate." That was my
mm,
wake up call. Um, and then I opened the doors of the program. I turned in my phone, and I just went off to um, bigger and better things. I went through the rehab. I graduated that. Went to a sober living spot. And still being married at the same time. My wife was with me the whole time,
wow.
And she told me, she was like, I know you're not talking to such and such, but to talk to me, I'll visit you, but you're not gonna come home right away until you get your life right. I love
Absolutely.
you. I love you, but you need to get your life right. I'm like, yeah, but you're a part of my life. She's like, if I was a part of your life, you wouldn't be there.
Mm,
That was another wake up call. Like,
absolutely.
now, uh, so then I went through the rehab, and then I went to a sober living spot. I went from living in a sober living house with like 8 other guys to like going to a sober living apartment, living with one.
Hmm.
And then when I was at the rehab, I was living with 160 other guys,
Wow.
um, and still working with a sponsor and still trying to get that mindset. Okay, look, I need to go to work. I need to start probably going to church, maybe start going to more meetings, and start maybe become a sponsor one day. Maybe go to different recovery, not different recovery meetings, but different recovery groups to see what it's like on the inside as far as everybody looking at me,
Hmm.
not just looking at me like an alcoholic, but looking at me like Chris again.
Right.
And so I did Celebrate Recovery. I did AA. I've done NA. And I just keep on going to the point where, okay, I think this could actually stick, because once I put my mind to something, I'm going to do it.
Okay.
Um, I was always told when I was younger by my dad, a grown man will own up to his mistakes, but a boy won't.
Absolutely.
So
Absolutely.
once I started working those meetings and started working that honest program, especially with my wife, and letting her know, look, I'm going to a meeting, letting her know my every move,
Hmm.
because at that point I'm in a single living, I mean, not a single, but in a sober living apartment. It was in a community where it wasn't so great. One and two, a lot of the guys around me were single, but a lot of
Okay.
the times, they wanted that single lifestyle. Yes, they were sober, but they wanted that single lifestyle.
Right.
They didn't want no part of me being around them, because I was that Debbie Downer, because I was the one that was married. Everybody
Hmm.
else was not. So the different Chris that they didn't see. But eventually, as time went on, I was able to go to work, which right now I'm an assistant store manager for a Walmart in my area.
Wow.
Um, and before that took place, I was working at a McDonald's, and
So
I
let
was
me.
just, yeah, and I was just making burritos and stuff like that for breakfast for people in the mornings.
Mm. So let me
And
unwrap some of that before you go too much further. You had talked about going into recovery, and I too went into recovery. But for some of the listeners that might be out there, recovery might be a scary thing. For me, I knew I was at the end of my rope. I had already stayed sober about 15 years from 2000 to 2016. Thought I had arrived, very smart, couple of college degrees and all of that stuff. And I ended up overseas, and it looked like everybody was having fun, and I got away from the original meetings and stuff, and I relapsed back in 2016, and my whole life went downhill real fast, and I tried to maintain it. But when I knew it was over, I'd been on like a 2 month run, and I had to make that call to recovery. Fortunately, my insurance covered some of that, and I got into some type of recovery program, a 28-day detox, as you said earlier. Don't do this by yourself. Alcoholism is the only thing that will take you out, trying to detox from it. That and some heavier stuff, but alcoholism is truly will take you out. And then you say you went to a sober living place, and I too stayed 28 days at a PHP intensified, like you said, with a bunch of people. So I wanted to stop long enough to let anybody listening know that if you know you're at the end of the rope or you need some help, by all means, call that 1-800 number, whatever number you can. Drop me a line here on this podcast or whatever you have to do. It's not that scary. I know it can be daunting, but it was not that scary. And it was scary when I went in, but I knew I couldn't continue on the way I was. And when I know I drank even when I didn't want to, is when I knew there was a problem. And I also smoked crack and did a whole bunch of other things. So I knew it was time to come in. So you moved forward, you got your life back together, and you start working the 12 steps of recovery. And that's a beautiful thing. I heard you mention sponsors. So 20 years, I'm like, do you still have to go to meetings every day? And another guy I was talking to says, man, he couldn't believe that it's a one day at a time thing. So talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, I definitely go to meetings every day. I go to at least maybe two or three a day. So 21 a week.
Wow.
Um, I do that for well, two reasons. One, I do it for less sanity.
Absolutely.
And,
I understand.
and two, it's it's like going into another world, where someone could actually understand you and hear you and knows what you're going through. Not saying my wife doesn't know what I'm going through, my kids don't know, my grandkids don't know, even my coworkers don't, but they don't know.
They do not.
So they don't speak the same language I speak when I go to a meeting. I speak English, and Spanish. But what I'm saying is my language in the meeting is a little bit different from what it is on the outside with them. And they get that. When I tell them it's time for me to go to a meeting, they're like, okay, well, we'll see when you get out. Before it used to be like, really, again? Now it's like, it doesn't phase them. Now it's like, okay, see you in an hour.
Right.
And it's 1 hour. It's only 1 hour. It goes by quick. It doesn't affect them. It doesn't hurt them. They're doing their thing. They're probably watching TV. They're probably watching a sports thing. They're probably playing a game on their phone. But when I jump onto a meeting, it goes by so quick. I don't even realize how quick it goes.
Right.
Um, but it helps me become, that better man, that better coworker, that better husband, that better father. And once they see the changes, they could say like, excuse me, they could ask, well, man, you changing. What's going on? Well, remember that meeting I went to? That's why I went, to be that
Yeah.
better husband, to be that better father, to be that better grandpa. But um, I'm just so thankful for the rooms of AA and NA because I've done both before, but I just stick to one now.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but yeah, I I still go, and before I used to do like 4 to 5 a day.
Right.
Now I've cut back, and I'm thinking about probably cutting back a little bit more. Probably just doing maybe like one or two a week. I'm thinking
A
about it.
week?
Yeah,
For
I'm
me,
thinking
I
about it.
know my day starts off as we met, at 6 a.m. in the morning, or maybe on a weekend, one of those two or three Zoom meetings that I attend. I claim Zoo Crew 22 as my home group, but I actually get up and pray and meditate prior to that. And that was not me before this last time coming in. Like I said, from 2016 to 2023, I was a hot mess in and out of jails, constantly causing arguments and fussing and fighting, not coming home and disappearing and things of that nature. And this
Yeah,
time, I got beat down into a sense of reasonableness. And I think my bottom, and I'll always share this, was I got literally stuck in a porta john at 1:30 in the morning. No one around. I could not get out of that thing, man. And so that's where my depth had took me. I've done a lot of other things, but that was when I knew I was out of my mind and I needed some serious help. And so,
I think what it is people don't realize that there's so, and I'm not trying to say this in a bad way. I don't understand. I think people don't understand that it's kind of like that. How can I say it? That metaphor. were with homeless people. Okay, well, in the same token, we're people that are in the programs, whether it's AANA or Overeaters Anonymous, Gamblers Anonymous, whatever. We're people too,
Yeah.
and we get looked at. Sometimes we might get looked at all disgusted, like, "Oh, really? You're in that again? Or, oh, why again?
Right.
Why are you back in it? Why?" They get a persona on us, and they put that label on us, like, "Oh, they're just there to get that chip, or they're just there to get that court sheet signed." But
Hmm.
they don't realize that that meeting is helping saving that person's life.
Absolutely.
And I use the homeless concept because I work with a lot of homeless people, and they're people too. They have a heart too, just like I do.
Right.
And if the resources are there, and if I'm available to help them, that to let them know, look, what, you could get off the street. There's resources that are there. I can help you get into a shelter. I can help you get into a rehab. I can help you get into a detox. I can help you get into this. Then by all means, why not? If my higher power woke me up with a house paid off, cars paid off, a wife by my side, breath in my lungs, why can't
Hmm.
I help that next person? You know, I gotta
Absolutely.
do I gotta do what's instructed in me. Like it says in the Bible, I gotta love thy neighbor. I
Hmm.
can knock on my neighbor's door right now and just hand them, $20, and I expect nothing in return, and say,
Right.
hey, what? This is just because. He might look at me all crazy, but I gotta love everyone. I gotta give everybody the benefit of the doubt, no matter what the situation is, because I know if my higher power brought me to a situation, he's gonna do it, and he can take it away.
Absolutely. So I believe you answered this one. What strategies or tools have you found most effective in navigating life's challenges while staying sober?
Just a lot. Um, oh, I've come a lot of people has come in my life, but come and gone. And I was recently talking with a buddy of mine um, from uh, from Florida, and we were talking about how many people we still know that are alive, and there's only like six of us from when we were kids,
Hmm.
and that just struck with me. Like, really? He's like, well, yeah, such and such passed away because he was in the military. Such and such took his own life. Such and such got in a car accident. Such and such. And I'm like, how can you remember all that? And I'm sober. How can you remember all that? And he's like, well, I'm in charge of the yearbook committee, and I got to stay on top of things. And just in case we do like a reunion, I got to see what we can do. I'm like, so when's the next reunion? He's like, so we're just gonna have a table for six at Olive Garden, like
Wow.
versus a gymnasium full of people, and it just boggles my mind. That's women and men combined.
Hmm.
Only six of us left, and I'm like, man, like what did I do wrong? But then I got to look in the mirror. I did everything right by going to rehab, uh, going to um, a sober living spot. I'm still praying with my wife by my side, and still going to church, and still um, getting that trust back from her and my kids and my grandkids and my job.
Hmm.
Excuse me, because the trust was broken for so long. I had to rebuild that. I had to put the
Absolutely.
foundations. I had to put the foundation down. I had to put concrete down. I had to start off with a blueprint and work my way
Hmm.
from there. I didn't just rush right into things. It took a good while for me to come back home. It took from the time I went to rehab until the time I got done with everything, almost 4 years
Wow.
to get
And
home
yes,
again.
yes, the new person coming in always says, man, I've been sober for 30 days, man. You'd think they would stop questioning me about this, that, or the other. But I know for my life, I terrorized folks for a long time, man. Like I say, from 8 years old up till at least 21 when I was introduced to some harder stuff. And then from 21 on, I was self-will run riot, put together a little bit of sobriety. But yes, a lot of people will say, And I've been sober 6 months, a year. They still don't trust me. They're still checking my cup and things of that nature. And that's because I've caused so much damage to them. I've come in and went back out so many times that they just like, nah, I don't trust you yet. So,
Yeah,
that,
it's gonna take a minute. It's like I told my wife told me one time. She looked at me. She was like, um, how she said it the other day? She's like, it took a while. We were talking about it, and she was saying that it took a while for me to give her a hug.
hmm
Because our breath was always smelling like alcohol. She didn't want that on her lips.
right.
She don't drink. He would say, don't just give me a kiss on the cheek. I'm like, yeah,
Mm.
but we're married. He's like, and give me a kiss on the cheek.
Oh yeah, we cause some serious damage, and our literature talks about that. Sometimes we would get right, and Bill's story talks about how we get right at the wrong time. When it's got that final thing, that final, sales thing, or getting ready to come up, or whatever it is, and we just get tired. You think he'd do it for her, you think he'd do it for the family, and then they start doubting themselves on, well, maybe you don't love me as much, like you made the statement, you like that other stuff more than you like me, but and that's not always the case. In some cases it might be, but the doctor's opinion says men and women essentially drink because they like the effects caused by alcohol, so I'm a firm
Yeah,
believer. Go.
absolutely. It took a while for me to, especially get that relationship back with my kids again.
hmm
My kids
Yeah.
are looking at me different. My kids are looking at me like,
Oh
that's the
yeah.
dad we, that's the dad, that's the, how can I say it? Not the dad that's the dad we know. That's the dad that we needed because
Absolutely.
the dad that they know was me drinking.
Yep. I do get
Now,
it.
now it's like the dad that we needed is like, okay, if you had been straight all along, we wouldn't be in this predicament. And
Yeah.
I'm like, but I'm here now, yeah, but you weren't there then,
Right.
and that's what makes me think, like, man, I wasn't there to take, my daughter to a dance or see her go to a homecoming dance or a prom or that
hmm
type thing. Now I'm able to see her, get married soon. I'm able to see her just, um, that little girl I remember seeing just as a little kid, like looking at me like, Daddy, when are you gonna come home? And me lying to her and saying, I'll be home tomorrow and I won't be home for another 2 weeks.
Right. Absolutely. I've been there, done that. My 15-year
And
old, probably almost 8, 9 years ago, had to call the police on me at one time. I had her mom barricaded in the room because I was so paranoid. I wasn't hurting her, but she was trying to get out and I wouldn't let her out. And she ended up having to call the police on me. And the police took me out and put me in the car and started asking me questions. And it was like, man, something wrong with this guy. He called the family unit, and the family unit came out and questioned me. And they took me to a psych ward instead of the prison that time. And 8 days later, I got out. You would have thought that would have been enough, man. But 8 days later, I got out and I went right back to doing what I was doing. So it wasn't that I loved them
that's
any lack. I just didn't know how not to stay stopped at the time. So,
like,
yeah,
totally, it's amazing how I can look at them now as like far as like people um meetings and people I come to in the meeting, people I just see on the outskirts of just living life. Like people look at me now. I've seen people that know me from when I first started my job till now. Like, man, I remember when you first got hired. Now look at you now. Look at what you're doing. Look what you're capable of doing. You got vacation coming up again. You got your wife still by your side. I get people ask me, um, can you help me do this? Can you help me do that? I try to help them in that direction. It's like I I don't get all the credit goes to my higher power. But
absolutely.
I don't do nothing without his say so. I put everything before him. I ask him permission. I ask him, is this okay? I even asked him before I even thought about even coming out here. I said, wait a minute. But I just don't want. to disappoint my higher power than I already did. I know I can't do that. But by me disobeying him, by taking that first drink and not being there for my wife and children, and not being there for myself, and disobeying, saying there is no higher power, that there is no this, there is no that, and blah blah blah. And I felt like I was disobeying him and disrespecting him, not knowing that he was trying to love me harder and love me more than I love myself.
Hmm. I was going to ask you to go down that road. You know, a lot of people listening, we have one of the meetings during the week called the God Word, and there's an atheist lady that runs that meeting. And, you know, some people think this is a religious code. So expound a little bit on the higher power and that relationship, because my higher power brought me self-love and showed me where I was failing that self-love and had a poor image of myself. So share a little bit about that, the higher power.
Well, my higher power, like I said before, I put everything through him. I, uh, I couldn't imagine a better life without him. I put my higher power first and my recovery second, and
Awesome.
everything else will roll off that. Before it was family, alcohol, alcohol, alcohol. Is there a higher power? Then it turned into alcohol, alcohol, alcohol. Meeting up with some friends, alcohol, alcohol. Then family. Things started situating. And now I just I put everything forth before my higher power. I pray on everything I do, whether it's eating, before I sleep, before I go to the gym, before I go to ball games with my kids, um, even before I go to playground with my grandkids, even like because I go to a playground and there's a guy that watches his daughter, and he'll have a sip of whatever while he's watching his kid. I used to think, man, I used to
It,
do that. Like,
it used to be
do I
me.
approach? Yeah, I approach him, or and I just, like I said, my higher power is key in everything I do, and it's going to stay that way for the rest of my life, because if I don't put him um first, or if I don't put him ahead of everything, then I can see my life going back to where I once was. And if I go back to where I once was, there's not another recovery in me. I don't have another 20 years. I don't.
Right, right.
There's no, um, and I don't see myself, to be honest, if I did go back out there, coming back, alive. I don't see it. I see
Absolutely.
me to, if I
So
went,
go ahead.
no, I was going to say, if I go back out there, there's not going to be another recovery. I told my wife before, I said, if I went back out there, you better have a funeral home on speed dial, because they're going to see me from being laying down instead of being vertical. And I
Absolutely.
just, yeah,
Absolutely. So my experience with that, I came in, I was a two-time deacon. My very first marriage, I thought, you know, deaconship would fix the situation. And I found out that me and the other deacon drink just as much on the weekends as anything else. So I like to share a portion of my story with that. And the 12th step, once I worked all 12 steps, they guarantee me almost that having had a spiritual awakening as the result of these steps, I would try to carry this message and to practice these principles in all my affairs. And so every time I heard anyone in the room say higher power or God or things of that nature, I assumed they was talking about the God I knew as being a deacon, and you know he's gonna send me to hell and do all of these things that my religious belief taught me. But once I did work all of the steps in order with the sponsor, I did develop another relationship with a higher power, a creator, if you for me to say, you know. But it, I wanted to specify that this program gives us our own, gives us the opportunity to have our own perception of a higher power, And so when I came in here, I always wanted my insides to match y'all's outside. Y'all talked about y'all had the spirituality and all of that stuff. And I was like, okay, well, I'll just go right back over here. But I never felt that connection until I worked all of the steps. During that process, somewhere around the ninth or 10th step, I did have a spiritual awakening. I did create a relationship with a creator that loves me, you know. And I heard a girl share the other day that says, your higher power can be anything you want it to be. Why don't you list some characteristics of that higher power instead of just calling him God, Jesus, Buddha, whatever? And that's not looked down upon or a requirement, either or, in these rooms. But I just wanted to make sure that I got that point across, that having had the experience through working these 12 steps. And so I hear that relationship with you and your higher power, and that's an amazing thing. So I appreciate you sharing that.
Not a problem. That that is my go-to. I remember one time my son had told me, he said, "You love your higher power more than me." Oh,
Well,
well,
yeah, without him,
yeah,
it ain't don't know you. That's
kind
for sure.
of. But he knows, and all my kids get the same equal amount of love, and if they got in trouble tomorrow, I'm still gonna love them. I grandkids too, even though like one of them like he's so hyper, but I love him because that reminds me of me when I was that age. But at the end of the
Absolutely.
day, he knows when to calm down. He knows when to get off my
Wow.
person. He knows. I just give him a look, and he's like, "Okay,"
Okay,
he
I got
knows.
it, Dad. Uh, so
Uh,
can you share a specific moment or experience that tested your self love and sobriety and how you overcame it?
I would probably say my first year, um, being sober on New Year's Eve, because that's when I used to really party hard. My family threw a big, big party in the time. They knew I was sober, but everybody else in my family was not.
Mm-hmm.
So my cousins and aunts and uncles, they bought all this stuff, food and alcohol and stuff like that. Music was going, dark room, and I was like, man, I walked past it. I was like, okay. I just walked past it, wanted to eat something, I wanted to go drink some water, some soda.
Mm-hmm.
The second year, the party got bigger. The third year, the party got bigger and just getting bigger. And people started bringing stuff, and people started like friends from when I was a neighborhood kid came, and they brought their wives, and they brought their children, they brought other stuff and some other things. I'm like, that's still just, you know. And then we went on a family vacation, um, on a cruise, and on a cruise,
Mm.
what's on?
Yeah.
Like, I'm just, man, really? And I looked at my wife once. I was like, "You're testing me. Like, you're seeing if I want to go forward with this." She's like, "Mm-hmm." She's like, "But they have free lemonade, coffee, and tea and water." And I'm like, "Yeah, but it's not the same." And
It is not the same.
she's like, "But you could do it." And I'm like, "My higher power could do it." So I prayed before I went on that vacation, and it was for like 14 days. I'm like,
Wow.
man, every morning seeing this, and like my daughters are like, they're social with it. My
Mm.
sons, they're social with it, and it's all good. Now it's like it doesn't phase me. Now it's like whatever.
Right.
It's like I told my kids, remember that phone call you told me before I came here? Well, it's my life. Well, the same thing goes through. That's your life, not mine. I'll help
Absolutely.
you if you need the help. I got you. But if you want to put that in your system, you go right ahead. That's fully on you. Will you
Yes.
still love me? Absolutely. But I love you from afar for a little bit. So
And
buckle
absolutely.
down.
Yeah.
So
So,
yeah.
so with the podcast being everything self love, now, trust me, if this doesn't of this doesn't apply to you, by all means, we can pass this. But in what ways has your childhood trauma, if any, played a role in your recovery and self love journey? And I pose that question because it wasn't until I got beat down into here and started prayer, meditation, and journaling that I realized I suffered from childhood trauma. I was inappropriately touched when I was 8 years old. And it took me till 59. I'll be 62 in May. It took me till 59 to realize that everything I'd done up there, all of the accomplishments, all of the coping mechanisms, all of the sleeping, lying, cheating, sleeping around, all of those things were coping mechanisms from that childhood trauma. So if you could share something about it, if you had, or if not, we can move right on.
I would probably say just me, you know, for me, it was like, how can I say it? I used to lie a lot in the
Mm-hmm.
hospital. I used to lie about everything. Like, okay, your dues died. Yep. Did you take something for lunch? Yep. Did you go to school today? Yep. What did you learn today? Yep. Um, and that turned into, like I said, once I started going to church more
Mm-hmm.
and, working with, work with men, and I'm part of a group at my church called Iron Men.
Awesome.
And, so we meet once a week, every Saturday morning to go to breakfast. We talk about what it's like during the week, how you doing,
Mm-hmm.
are you still doing this or still doing that? But I guess, the lying has stopped completely
Yes.
because this program teaches me to be rigorous and honest. And once I saw that, I knew from jump, I was like, I have to be honest with myself and be honest with everybody around me
Mm-hmm.
to let them know because if if I'm lying about it, then I could say what I'm not drinking anything right now, even though I'm drinking a glass of milk, but I could say I'm drinking I'm drinking water and it's something else.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so through all the counseling sessions and rehab and working with my sponsor on a daily, um, and going to Zoom meetings or in person meetings, that honestly with me gets helps me become a better man on a daily basis.
Awesome.
Through for my job, because of what I do through my job and what I do for my local community, uh, with my church, um, and everybody around me can see the difference now. My mom was alive; she'd probably say, "Well, it's about time you told the truth." You know,
I understand for sure. Yes, I had to develop that through working the 12 steps. I couldn't just stop lying. So I'm grateful for the times that I journal. And I am a totally different person today. I don't lie as much. I say that jokingly, but this is the first time I've been 100% in anything that I've done, and I'm so grateful. I hate to say it, but I'm grateful that I got beat into a sense of reasonableness. I'm grateful that I've went through the stuff that I went through to get me to this point because I would have went on to the bitter end. I found out I had some other addictions, and some sexual addictions and things, and I found that out through working the 12 steps and telling the truth and coming in here on a daily basis and journaling and sharing with my sponsor. And he said, "Man, you might want to take care of some other stuff." I was like, "Nah, I'm
well,
good." But I had to get honest, man. And once I got honest with me, that's where the self love came in. I found self love. I've been on the road
absolutely,
since, man.
that's
So,
good.
how would you prioritize your self care by going to meetings and taking care of things that you need to? What advice would you give to others who are struggling with maintaining their sobriety while also practicing self love?
I would say just um, you hit it on earlier about um, reaching out. Don't be afraid to reach out. Call your sponsor, or if you have a sponsor, or call somebody else in the program and they can help you along the way as much as they can.
Hmm.
Um, I My phone's always on. I had to the point where I got one phone now, but when I first got early on in my sobriety, I had like two phones because I had that many phone numbers. But now it's like I'm good with just the one now. Um, but I forgot when I did that, I was telling people all the time, hey, you could call me, you could text me, you could call me, you could text me. But that was real difficult because my phone was going off all day, all night. Um, I should have just said you can only call me between the hours of this and this and that.
Right.
I didn't look at it like that. I looked like I'm just trying to help somebody. And I had
Absolutely.
people from Australia would call me, from New Zealand. I had people from Tokyo, from Russia, from the States, from South America, Canada. All these people are calling me, hey, how did you do this? How do you do that? I need a sponsor. Can you help me? My husband's fighting with me. My wife's fighting with me. My daughter just ran away. Wow.
Right.
Am I Chris? Am I Chris or am I Dr. Phil?
Right.
Like, pick one.
Right. No doubt.
um, Now it's like I only got the one. Um, I have four sponsees. I have a sponsor. I have a grand sponsor. Between the three of us, there's like 86 years of sobriety just between the three of us.
Hmm.
And if I can't find an answer, I'm gonna get with somebody that has a little bit more sobriety than I got. That's gonna help me help somebody. So yeah, I would say just reach out, and definitely be honest and be try to try to be you in a positive. Get yourself when you look at yourself in the mirror, just look at yourself in the mirror, knowing that you can do this. Not there's no
Absolutely.
can't. There's
Absolutely.
no can't. You can because if I can, I'm pretty sure you can. And I mean, I'm still young in this program. I look at myself. Oh, you're an old timer. To me, an old timer, like my sponsor, he has like 60 years.
Wow.
So, I look up to him in a lot of ways.
Hmm.
Um, but at the end of the day, I just got to remember, like I said, reach out, be honest. And if you're struggling, talk with a pastor, try to talk with a counselor. There's so many resources out there. They're like, some of them are free. I mean, and I'm not saying this in a bad way. If you have listeners that are on Medicaid or financial help, they do have, you could get counseling sessions that are
Hmm.
free for you. If you have a job that says EAP, that's like called an employee assistance program. That's what we have in our job.
That's right.
And you do get up to like 15 sessions a year for free. And then after that, it's like they charge like $5 or $10 each session.
Absolutely. That's
So
great. Great
um,
advice.
there's definitely resources that are out there. I was going to say a phone number on here, but I don't know if I can. But It's called 211.
Absolutely.
You can call them and they can give you a referral. They're open 24 hours a day. And if you're not feeling yourself or you feel like harming yourself, there's 988. You can call them. There's a counselor that you could talk to.
Absolutely.
Um, there's always a resource. I mean, if you could get on your phone and text someone, whether you could get on social media or you could do a Snapchat or Instagram or Facebook or whatever you got going on, you can reach out. There's no other way around. If you reach out to your friend on Facebook, you can reach out and get help. That's all there is to
Absolutely.
it.
Absolutely. That's great resources. You said 211, and what's the other
Yeah,
one?
988.
Okay. All right. That's
Mhm.
awesome, man. I appreciate that. We're going to make sure we put that in the at the end of the program here. I'll make sure that it's available. How has your concept of forgiveness, both of oneself and others, been instrumental in your journey of self-love and recovery?
Um, it's a lot better now. Before I used to just roll my eyes with it and just be like, yeah, okay, whatever. But now once people have like hurt me or disrespected me, I was like, look, I know why you did it. I understand why you did it. Um, Now let's not try to do this again. But if it does happen again, We'll talk about it. We'll revisit the conversation. Um, just go over for what has been actually this happened to me the other day. A coworker of mine didn't know I was on a schedule. I was trying to help him. We got all loud and crazy. He's like, "Oh, if you weren't here," and blah blah blah. And he started going off and had customers in front of me, and he started going off on the radio, cussing
Mm.
me. So, finally, I pulled him in the office. I said, "Look, dude, there's a time and a place for everything. You want to talk to me like that? Radio's off. Turn your radio off. Be a man. Tell me how you really feel." And he's like, "Well, I don't like blah 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 blah." I'm like, "Okay, feel good now. Let me buy you a Pepsi. Let me buy you a soda. Eat some cookies. Go on a break. Go outside. Take a cigarette break. Go pump your brakes. Come back. We'll talk." He did all that. Came back. He's like, "You know what? My bad.
Absolutely.
I just I didn't know you were on the schedule. I apologize. You work hard like I do. This is between us." I said, "Yeah, but it's really not because other customers were there." He said, "Yeah, but this is between us. My other management needs to know what's going on. I just had a disagreement, and
Right.
my forgiveness. Now, before I used to be the counter. I wanted to cuss them right back out and disrespect them.
Yeah.
Put my fist up and be ready to throw blows.
Right.
But now it's like I just laughed it off. I was like, "That's cool." I told him, I said, "You must have been on your man period. There's
Wow.
no there's no other way I will let another man talk to me like that. My kids
Absolutely.
don't do it like that. I got a grown son, and he doesn't even talk to me like that. So,
Absolutely.
um, what makes you think you're gonna talk to me like that? So, yeah, my forgiveness is a lot better now.
That's
I
good.
think the reason why it's like that is because I have again, my higher power has forgiven me. My wife has forgiven me. And there's stuff with that too,
Right.
and she knows, and she's very. I'm not saying I'm on thin ice. I'm not saying I'm not even none of that. What I'm saying is she's like really watching my
Hmm.
recovery really closely. Like, okay, wow, he's in a meeting, he's doing this, he's doing that. Okay, okay, and she's trusting me a little bit more every day, and
That's
that
a
makes me
beautiful.
feel good.
Yeah.
That makes me feel
It is a beautiful thing. The 12 steps gave me my same daughter that called the police on me back in my life. The younger one is back in my life. Most of my daughters is back in my life. And I say most, it's a whole nother story, a whole nother Dr. Phil moment on that, but we'll keep that where it is. It's just a beautiful thing to be able to communicate and for them to begin to start trusting again, man. And that's a beautiful thing. So, coming up
good.
towards the end of this, man, it's called Everything Self Love. So, what does the phrase "you love you" mean to you in the context of sobriety and self love journey?
Um, but, loving myself. Um, I, I love myself a lot more than when I once did.
Yeah,
I know that. Um, and I'm able to love other people. I love my coworkers. You know, I love everybody that's in the program because for them to show up to a meeting, whether it's early in the morning, feeling that vulnerable to talk about whatever they got to talk about, and to be honest, and just to keep on working these steps, and just being you again, being that person that someone needs to look up to, whether it's your child or your husband or your wife to look up to. You know, you deserve love all the way around. You just don't
absolutely.
deserve love. You just don't deserve love from your fellow the person that's uh like either laying beside you or being in your life, but you have other people that are in your corner that are pulling for you. Once you have
Hmm.
that, then your love just expands. And I'm just so thankful that my sponsees trust me and that I can go to them anytime. They can come to me anytime. And
Absolutely.
I'm thankful that that my sponsor could, you know, how did he say the other day? He said something. If my higher power led me to a situation, he would lead me through a situation.
Absolutely. He'll take you through it for sure.
And when I've done the love aspect, I think I love everybody at this point. Even if you, like I said, I've helped so many people through the years that it just, I think the love has just gotten bigger and bigger. It used to be like the Grinch, real small with no heart at all. Now it's like it's like it's beating. I feel like a positive beat to my heart now
Yeah,
versus before. It used to be like, yeah, okay, I'd be like Grinch with a little bit of Scrooge, and all. So now it's like I guess says in the big book, Happy, Joyous, and Free. Um,
absolutely.
that talks about that fourth dimension. I think I'm on like the 12th dimension. I don't feel. I
Been
feel.
rocking it into the
I
fourth
feel really
dimension.
good.
Absolutely. Well, that is awesome, man. Actually, I had a guest on earlier and they referred it back to me and said, "So, what does you love you mean to you?" And today it has a different meaning, but it actually means that I'm a man that shows up and does what I'm supposed to do because I'm supposed to do it. And that really kind of gave me a meaning of, where the 12 steps have brought me, the one, two, and three, the four and five, and all of the forgiveness that I've asked and all of the amends that I've made and still have some to make. And then it says, like you said, being rocketed into the fourth dimension, and you're on dimension 12. And I feel you on that because if I'd have got what I wanted out of these 12 steps, and I'd have coming into a treatment center, and that was just to either control my drinking or to stop or things of that nature. But
Right.
man, I've got so much more, man, so much freedom and everything else. So I just appreciate you being here. Any last words that you?
No, that's it. I'm praying for your listeners. Excuse me, sorry. Praying for your listeners, and like I mentioned before, do not be afraid to reach out. Do not. The phone may be heavy, but once you reach out and say what you got to say, then that phone will be real light. Because
Absolutely.
now, um, you know, I tell my sponsors all the time, dial, don't file,
Yes.
and
Absolutely.
just if you get into a treatment program, whether it's a rehab, whether it's 28 days, 6 months, a year, 2 years, however, how long it takes, it doesn't matter because you can't rush it.
Right.
You're already out there doing your thing, already doing what you had to do, but now it's time to really buckle down. It's time to be that woman, or that man that your higher powers called you to be. You
Hmm.
need to be that. You need to be that mom. You need to be that dad, that husband, that wife, that brother, that sister, niece, nephew. Um, you know, broken crayons still color. So
Absolutely.
at the end of the day, you just gotta stay strong and look at yourself in the mirror and just remember you're worth it. Don't don't sell yourself short. You have purpose in this life. So that's pretty much what I have.
Yes, indeed. Well, I do appreciate you coming in and sharing your experience, truth, and hope with us. And it's been my pleasure to have you on here. We've been listening to Carmello R from Ohio with over 20 years of experience, man. And if I had my machine here with the hand clap and everything, we get, which I haven't. I just didn't take the time to hook it up. But man, thank you so much
Okay,
for
brother.
coming in, and we really appreciate you.
My pleasure, man. And I will be praying for you. And like I said, I'll be praying for the listeners that they get those resources and take advantage of it. It's there.
Absolutely,
It's,
absolutely,
it's totally it's there. And if you can't get if you don't have insurance, try to get with somebody to help you get on insurance. There's always there's no excuse when it comes to recovery. There's no excuse when you're needing help. like I said, if you could reach out to your friend on social media or do a tweet or do a crazy Snapchat message, you could you could fill out forms on whether it's for Medicaid or whatever case may be, um, and get that self help you need because mental health is huge too.
Absolutely.
And but you got to get your mental right, get your physical right, get on a good diet, get on something positive, go for walks, listen to music, just get back to being you again, but in a positive aspect, knowing that you can have you can make a difference in somebody else's life, and you too could have that 20 years too if you do it the right way and you're being honest.
One day at a time, man. I do appreciate you once again. Thank you so much for being here.
My pleasure.
Wow, what an excellent podcast we had. You've been listening to Carmello R from Ohio and on the podcast, Everything Self Love and Recovery, where we discuss everything self love. And as Carmelo put in there, please use some of the resources available, 211 and several others, ones you can find down in the chat below. If you need help, if you need assistance, by all means, reach out to me at Wendell at youloveyoullc.com. Go to the website, youloveyoullc.com. There's information on how to contact me. But get some help, get involved, As he was saying, help somebody, I meant to mention my website, helpamofo.com, where you can get different gear, hoodies, t-shirts, hats, and things. And that kind of supports the funding of putting on the production of a podcast. So take a look at it, helpamofo.com, and go to the website. And, I'm just grateful that individuals want to come in and share their experience, strength, and hope with us. I'm also an author, a speaker, a podcast host. I've authored one book that's on Amazon right now. It's called 4 Powerful Strategies to Heal from Trauma. So if you're suffering from some form of trauma, if you got bad behaviors like I had bad behaviors and didn't know what it was, I provided a book that gives you 4 powerful strategies to heal from that trauma or to help identify. My motto is we discover, discard, and deal with childhood trauma. By all means, go to the site, grab a copy of the book, email me, text me, and let's talk about, I always say, how long will I allow my past to hold my future hostage? Don't do it. Thank you so much for listening to Everything Self-Love and Recovery, the podcast where we discuss self-love. Peace. Did you know that over 50% of Americans suffer from some form of childhood trauma? That could be your cousin, your brother, every other individual you meet suffers from or deals with some type of childhood trauma. Well, I wanted to take the time to present that to you and let you know that I have a solution to that. And I've developed and authored a book called The Self-Love Blueprint, a guide to healing and empowerment. By all means, I'm going to put a link in here down below this video, and I just wanted to introduce you to the book, The Self-Love Blueprint, a guide to healing and empowerment, where I explain some of the guides that took me through the prayer, meditation, identifying and dealing with childhood trauma. As an adult, I never knew that I was suffering from or even dealing with it. I thought the coping mechanisms that I developed was just, I just thought they were bad habits or be a man and things of that nature. I realized today that through prayer, meditation, reading and journaling and studying and learning about myself, that there needed to be a guide out there to self-love. So I have the Self-Love Blueprint. By all means, it's on Amazon. Look it up. I'm the author, Wendell Holmes, and I look forward to assisting or answering your questions. Again, sign me up. You can go to speaker.youloveyoullc to be a guest on the podcast. You can also connect with me through Facebook at youloveyoullc.com. By all means, take a look, like, subscribe, and share this message to those that you might know that needs it. Thank you so much for your time. A self-love blueprint, a guide to healing and empowerment. Thank you.